What does a possible collapse or Taliban taking control once again of that country mean to your country and mean to our country?
Well, for one thing, the good news is that the Taliban are not going to take over. Pakistan has become a democracy. We had elections. There were groups that had Taliban-light ideas who participated in the elections, and they did not get more than 1% of the vote. The major political parties both opposed the Taliban's worldview. When the Taliban took over Afghanistan, we saw that they were a very violent group. They had a very narrow, limited vision of what life should be like. They were averse to modernity. They shut down women's schools and girls' schools and women's colleges. They put women behind closed doors and insisted that women could not participate in any aspect of life. Their notion of the economy was also very sort of primordial. So those are the things that the Taliban mean for any region that they take over. Their system of justice is essentially swift retribution rather than fair judiciousness. What they mean for the rest of the world is that in Afghanistan, when the Taliban took over, they allowed groups such as Al-Qaeda to find a safe haven, and Al-Qaeda was responsible for 9/11, as you and I well know.
How serious is the threat that they will once again take power in Afghanistan?
The Taliban are a limited threat now. The chance that they could take over Afghanistan or Pakistan is very, very, very remote. In case of Pakistan, Pakistan has a very strong military. Pakistan's institutions of state, especially after the restoration of democracy, have started strengthening. I don't know if you remember the images of lawyers marching in Pakistan's streets to seek the restoration of the Chief Justice who had been fired by a dictator. So basically we have a strong civil society. We have our weaknesses as well, but we are addressing those weaknesses, and we hope that our friends in the international community, including the United States, will help us overcome those weaknesses. But we are certainly not a state in any state of collapse where the Taliban can take over. And in Afghanistan also, Afghanistan has become a democracy. We just had elections there, even though there is a dispute over the elections, but this dispute is also part of the democratic process. After all, your own country in 2000 had several days before it actually decided upon who had won the election for president. So it's a democracy, it's a country that is raising its own military, it's a country that is trying to increasingly cooperate with its neighbor, that is us, and trying to find stability. I think that what the real nuisance that the Taliban poses, that they cause deaths that can be avoided, they create disruption that we can do without, and they do not allow a normal life in the countryside of Afghanistan and in some very limited parts of Pakistan.
Len Lyons wants to know, how do you convince maybe a tired American public that it's important to keep its presence in Afghanistan?
Well, first of all, I would say to the tired American public that, friends, you get tired too soon. Second, the United States represents great ideas. This country was built on an idea. America is home to people from many, many parts of the world. This nation rests on the concept of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It does not derive its identity from a 5,000-year history. It derives its identity from a document called the Constitution of the United States. So you have some ideals to uphold in the world. And secondly, in purely pragmatic terms, you walked away from Afghanistan in 1989 after the Soviets left. I don't know if you've watched the movie Charlie Wilson's War. You gave the weapons, you gave the training to fight the Soviets, and once the Soviets left, you said goodbye, thank you very much, and didn't do anything for the Afghan people or for the Pakistani people who had helped you fight that war. And the consequence of it was that some of those people who were angry and who were left behind with this training in violence and terrorism, they came back and caused 9/11. If you can take the longer term view, then understand that the security of these countries is essentially your own security. If you do not want terrorists to find a safe haven, if you do not want angry people to become radicalized to the point where they start threatening you and your own survival, then you need to work and help the people of Pakistan and Afghanistan. And very frankly, the cost of doing that is not as high as you think.
One of our local elected officials, a city councilwoman in a town called Centennial just south of here, Rebecca McClellan, talked about how the Pakistani American community has been working with local and regional leaders here to build relationships. She said they stressed the need for improvements in education in Pakistan as a way of helping to reduce the appeal of those non-peaceful organizations. And she'd like your thoughts on how important that is.
The councilwoman is absolutely right. First of all, the Pakistani American community has made a great contribution to the life of the United States, and they continue to make a great contribution to life back home in Pakistan. Look, Pakistan in the last 62 years of independence has had to deal with many choices, one of which has to be, should we invest more in our security or should we invest more in our population in terms of education? We have had to invest in security because of geopolitical reasons. But the consequence is that only 58% of our school-going age children between the age of 5 and 15 go to school. Now what that does is, it's a series of effects. The 42% that don't go to school don't get the skills that will make them advance themselves in life. An unhappy person is more likely to become a recruit for an extremist cause than somebody who has a future. A person who has the potential to have a job making shoes or shirts for Nike or Walmart is less likely to join the Taliban to make improvised explosive devices. So I think that the Pakistani community in America is doing a great job in sensitizing people to the need for making sure that the 42 out of 100 Pakistani children that are not in schools end up in schools so that they can be trained for a modern economy. Pakistan has the potential to be like one of the East Asian countries, a powerhouse in economic terms. Those of us who do get education do very well in life. So all we have to do is make sure that the number of the deprived and dispossessed in Pakistan reduces, and the same goes for our neighboring country, Afghanistan. And then definitely the extremists will be marginalized. It will not be easy for the people of Pakistan to be fooled by extremists with conspiracy theories and a hardline ideology if the people are really part of the modern global economy.
You had mentioned earlier public opinion polls that showed the Pakistani people committed and believing that fighting terror is important. What do those polls show about their attitudes toward America?
Well, the United States has unfortunately over the last few years not been very popular in the Muslim world for a number of reasons. And before I became ambassador, I was an academic and I used to research on this subject. Unfortunately, as ambassador, I can't say all the things I could say as an academic, but let me just say that part of it has been the United States' tendency to just sort of walk away and ignore things, thinking that the United States is a great country. You're protected on both sides by two oceans. Not many wars that you have had to fight on your own homeland. Tremendous economic prosperity. You are about 5% of the world's population, but you consume about 25% of all global consumption takes place here. So the result is people can sometimes be a little smug about the rest of the world. That's one part of it. The other part of it is that your enemies don't stop propagating against you. So there's the envy factor. There's the enemies. During the Cold War, it was the Soviet Union. Now it's the extremist Islamists in the Muslim world. And then there are genuine grievances about U.S. policy. People in the Middle East have issues about what they perceive to be a lack of even-handedness towards the Palestinians. Rightly or wrongly, that's the perception. In Pakistan, there's a perception that in India-Pakistan issues, the U.S. has tended not to be sufficiently supportive of Pakistan. And you walked away after the war in Afghanistan. Many Pakistanis and Afghans believe that the United States did not stay with us even though we stayed with them in fighting the Soviets. So as a result, popularity of the United States is low. The good news there, however, is that since the induction of the new administration, people are more willing to give the United States a chance. And the United States is engaging the people more. You are engaging more in public diplomacy. You're engaging more with others. My message to the American public would be that there are two ways of engaging with the world. One is retreating into your fortress and living a comfortable life, but then saying, we don't understand why these people all hate us. And the other is to engage with the world and show them what greatness you've accomplished here, and be willing to share that greatness with the rest of the world so that they become part of the success that is America.
Last question, sir. Tomorrow will be 8 years since the attacks on 9/11. What do you believe the message should be? I mean, people have already in many ways kind of gone about their daily lives again, has forgotten maybe what happened 8 years ago. What's the message to be learned?
I think the message to be learned from 9/11 was that if the United States ignores some part of the world, that part of the world can somehow make itself relevant to the United States, even if it is in a negative way. So nobody had heard of Afghanistan or the Taliban or had bothered to learn about them before 9/11. And then after 9/11, guess what? Everybody woke up to who did it. Oh, who are the Taliban? Where is Afghanistan? I think the better way of dealing with the world would be to be aware of all of that on a regular basis.